Hey everybody, how are you today? Jim Prusak here from the Pain PT, and we're going to talk about stress and how stress is chronic pain, and chronic pain is also stress. The common denominator here is the word stress. When we look at stress, what it does to our system, our body, and our mind is it creates symptoms. It either creates emotional symptoms in us or it creates physical symptoms in us. And so this is the cause of most chronic health problems, is stress. And I'm going to show you here today some of the science and data that shows how stress manifests in us in the United States based on some data. And we're going to look at the American Institute of Stress. This is an organization that is looking to improve the health of people in relationship to stress by doing research, clinical care, and educating the public. And so some of the data they collected was looking at stress and the top causes of stress in the United States. This was done in 2014. Have a look at the list here of what they found to be the top causes of stress in the United States. Now this is probably true for most Western world countries, these same 7 things here. Job pressure being number 1, money, financial, stress, our health, like we just mentioned, chronic pain is a stressor, or chronic illness is a stressor. Our relationships can be a stress at times in our lives, all the way from childhood relationships with our parents, all the way up to current relationships with our partners and family. Poor nutrition can be a stress. This is something that's not necessarily talked about too much in this world of mind-body syndrome or attention myositis syndrome, TMS, or brain and nervous system problems. But when we're having poor nutrition, processed foods, refined sugars, too much caffeine, that stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress system, right? As do all the other causes here on the page. So media overload, that's something that's really come into play in the last number of years, as we're seeing with all the social media out there. You know, television now, just watching the news, there's a ticker going on the bottom of the screen while you're trying to listen to what the broadcaster is saying. There's so much information coming into us, and a lot of it is negative and fear-based information. Last thing on the list, sleep deprivation. So when you can't sleep, then you get stuck in this fight or flight zone, and it really wreaks havoc on the rest of the body and mind during the day, lack of sleep. So these are the top causes of stress in the US. Now there's one thing missing here on the list. Can you guess what it is? This is probably in some cases one of the most important things for stress, one of the biggest causes. It's not on the list. Here it is. Our own minds. So our own minds create internal stress. This is an internal stressor versus an external stressor coming from outside of us. Our own brains and its thought patterns and beliefs and our thinking patterns create a lot of stress. If we're a worrier, if we're a perfectionist, if we're somebody who is always trying to please, if we're always catastrophizing, thinking for the worst, if we're an anxious thinker, our thinking can create a lot of stress in our bodies, just the way we're thinking about things. So it's one of the missed stressors, but it's really important. And when I talk to people and I treat people with these chronic health conditions, they say, well, I don't have a lot of stress in my life right now. My life's pretty good. And I go, well, what about your own brain, your own mind? And they go, aha, yeah, my brain is a stressor. My thoughts are stressors. So we have to look at all these components of stress and how they affect the body. And so here's how they affect us. So this is U.S. stress statistics, again, 2014. And the percent of people who regularly experience physical symptoms from stress, 77%. Now that's actually more Then the next line here, which are people who experience psychological symptoms caused by stress, 73%. So think about that. A lot of times you think of stress as being only psychological or emotional and that it's invisible, but people experience more physical symptoms than they do psychological symptoms with stress. And that's what we're talking about here. So a lot of people are living in extreme stress, over a third of people. A lot of people feel the stress is increasing over the last 5 years in their lives. Almost half the number of people polled feel like their stress has increased. People citing money and work as a leading cause of their stress. 75%, 3/4 of the people. And again, the sleep problem. Almost half the number of people reported lying awake at night due to stress. So stress is really impacting us on a physical level and a psychological level. So we know that. We know the body is really affected by stress. And if you look at here, a broad overview of all the systems of the body, it's every system of the body that can be affected by stress, from the nervous system to the musculoskeletal system to our respiratory breathing system to our heart and the cardiovascular system to the endocrine system, the gastrointestinal system, and the reproductive system. So all these systems can be affected. That's why we see a multitude of different symptoms and a multitude of different conditions that can result from stress in a physical way. Now, the physical symptoms caused by stress from this study, from looking at all these people, they found these were the most common physical symptoms. By no means is this all-inclusive, but this is the most common. Fatigue. 51% of the people reported fatigue from stress. Headache, 44%. Upset stomach, 34%. Muscle tension in the body, 30% of the people. Change in appetite, 23%. Teeth grinding, which is tension in the jaw, TMJ type stuff, 17%. Change in the sex drive, 15%. And feeling dizzy, 13%. So we know that stress causes a major impact in a physical way. And here's the most common ways that you see here. It also causes psychological symptoms. Remember, 73% of the people reported psychological symptoms from stress. The most common ones, irritability and anger, 50% of the people. Now this ties in really well with the work of mind-body syndrome, TMS, tension myositis syndrome, coined by Dr. Sarno. We talk a lot about the underlying emotions being a part and parcel with chronic health conditions. So anger is right there. Feeling nervous, okay, which is a form of anxiety or fear, 45% of people. Lack of energy, 45%. And feeling as though you could cry, which is sadness or grief, 35%. So we basically cover the three main emotions here: anger, fear, and sadness or grief that are caused from stress. And this is why stress can ping pong back and forth in our bodies as representing in a physical way, and sometimes it represents itself in more of an emotional way, psychological way. But it has this dual impact on us. So 2 questions you want to ask yourself when it comes to stress. First of all, where does your stress come from? Does it come from some of that list you saw, the top 8 things before? Things such as your job, your family, your health condition itself, from your diet, from lack of sleep? Does it come from the media? Or does it come from inside your own brain? The way you're thinking about things, your thought patterns, your worries, your concerns, your anxieties? Or does it even come from things that happened to you in childhood? Unresolved things from the past, unresolved situations where you're still concerned about it, worried about it, holding resentment about it. The second question is, what symptoms are caused by your stress? We looked at a few of them here. What sort of physical symptoms are caused by your stress? What sort of psychological symptoms are caused by your stress? Ask yourself these 2 questions to get a better idea of how stress affects you. Now, once you've asked yourself these questions, we want to look at what do we do about it. So when it comes to chronic pain and it comes to chronic health conditions, what we want to do is we want to treat the stress, not the symptoms. And many people have this the other way around. They're going after their symptoms. They're getting all these physical treatments. They're going after treatments that target their symptoms. But they're not looking at the source of the problem, which is the underlying stress. So if we're only focusing on the symptoms, that's just an output from the cause, which is the stress. The symptoms are secondary and the stress is primary. So what we want to do with stress is we want to change what we can change to lower stress, whether that be in the current moment or whether that be to look at our own brains, our own thought patterns, how we're thinking, dealing with things. Do we need to go back and resolve things from the past with people that were in our lives or situations that we can let go of those things? So we have to learn to accept and transform current and past stress through some of the techniques we've been talking about here in some of my other videos. This emotional awareness, dealing with emotions openly, relaxation techniques, moving from your fight or flight sympathetic system to your parasympathetic rest and digest, restore system, and through this mental filtering, changing, transforming, and changing our thoughts, our thought patterns from something that's worried, concerned, negatively thinking, catastrophizing to something that's okay with this. So ultimately, to resolve the symptoms, to resolve any of your chronic symptoms, we need to treat the source, which is stress. Otherwise, you just end up managing the symptoms. There's a lot of management programs out there that talk about pain management or managing your chronic condition through medications and other treatments. But we want to get to the source. We want to resolve your symptoms. We don't just want to manage them. So to get to the source, we must go to the stress. Thanks, everybody. If you have questions, reach out to me. I'm here for help, consultation. I want to help any and all of you find ways out of your chronic pain, out of your chronic health condition, so you can live your life and be happy and enjoy your time here. All right, take care. Bye-bye.